Hey guys, Wilson here with Cabinet Startup. I want to do a quick video for you based on a conversation we had on our last podcast. We're talking specifically about the benefits of specializing, why you should specialize, and then also how you should know where you should specialize. Now, obviously, by specializing, there's some pros for the business, right? Number one, you can charge more money if you're a specialist, right? Which makes things much better. Two, it's a lot simpler to scale because you just have to hire people to do one thing as opposed to teaching people a bunch of different skills. It also makes running the business easier because you have less inventory, less actual pieces and parts to manage. And so we really like specializing, but sometimes when people are first starting, they're like, how do I specialize? Where do I specialize? And that's the question we want to answer. And I can't answer that question for you without talking to you, but I can tell you how to answer that question for yourself. So I'm going to take you through two different examples of jobs and what it would look like to actually calculate what your most profitable use of time is. So let's say, for example, that we have two jobs that we're looking at, right? So we've got job one. You guys will have to ignore my chicken scratch. And we have job two. Here we go. So these two will say one would be equivalent of epoxy, the other would be equivalent of a painting job. So if you're doing let's say a 1,800 square foot, 2,000 square foot house, right? For job one, you may be charging $4,000. Okay, you've got labor and materials that you have to cost for. So typically you'd be looking at probably $650 to $800. Let's say $650, and we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And then we also want to look at, all right, so if we have two guys and it takes them 5 days to do that, that's 10 total man days of labor. If we're paying them 8 hours a day at $20 an hour, which is a pretty fair estimate, what we're then looking at is 10 times 8 times 20, $1,600. All right. So, since I'm not a mathematician, let's just do some quick math here. Minus 650 minus 1,600. You're looking at a profit of 1,750, which is nothing to scoff at. Now, this profit doesn't take in, obviously, marketing costs. This profit does not account for your overhead. There's a lot of things that are not included in this, but regardless of which job you're doing, you're going to have that same kind of overhead, and realistically, you'll have probably similar marketing costs. If your marketing costs vary a lot from job to job, you're going to want to add that in. So job two, say it was epoxy. You've got a 400 square foot garage, and you're charging $2,400 for that. Okay, so you've got two guys. It takes them 2 days to get that work done. Maybe they're hustlers, love it. So that's a total labor of 640, excuse me, we'll leave that zero off. And then the materials here are going to be about $920. Let's erase that so people can actually read it. So our materials here are $920. So on this job, right, 2,400 minus 640 minus 920, we profited $840. Now, there's a temptation sometimes to just look at that and go, well, look, we made $1,750 on this job and $840 on this job, so obviously job one's better, which is not true, right? Because the missing piece here is the amount of time that we need to account for. Remember, job one took 5 days, and job two took 2 days. So what we have to figure out is what is the profitability on a daily basis look like. So we're going to take our 1,750, we're going to divide it by 5 days, and we know that if we're doing interior painting, we make $350 a day, right? Or we can take the 840 and we can divide that by 2 days. So in this case, we make $420 a day. So in actuality, we looked like in the very beginning that job one was more profitable, but in actuality, job two is more profitable. Now, the reason this matters, because if you look at it, well, 420 versus 350, not that big of a deal. But you have to assume, right? If you're like the average American, even if you're taking 2 weeks off a year, right? Or let's say you love to vacation, you take 4 weeks off a year, right? That means you got 48 weeks worth of work. So if we take this 420 and we do it for 48 weeks, okay, we're talking about a profit of $100,000, because remember there's 5 days in a week. Not bad. If we take our 350, we're looking at $84,000. And it is important. Sorry guys, apparently I'm struggling with my zeros today. Long week. So when we're looking at $84,000 versus $100,000, that is a significant difference, because remember, this is profit. This is profit. An extra $20,000 in profit is a lot, right? You can do a lot with $20,000, right? You can take your wife on the best vacation she's been on in years and years and years. You can pay for a half a semester of college for your kid. Or you could, do what we do and send them to the trades. But it's seriously worth looking at, because if we know that we make more profit per day working on job 2, and we can fill all 5 days on those jobs, and what that means is we need to focus our marketing, and we want to focus our hiring, and we want to focus our operations around really going after this right here. All right, we want to really go after job 2 and take advantage of that increase in profit. Now, one of the things that you're going to find is there are occasionally jobs, right, that come along once in a while, and you just can't manage to get those all the time. Or let me re-say that, you may feel like that's the case. The reality is this: you, for the most part, right, you have the capacity, you have the ability to get those jobs if you know what you're doing, if you know where you're marketing, if you know how you're marketing. But it's much harder to fill up a calendar and fill up your schedule with those types of jobs if your marketing is all over the place, right? Because most people are so afraid of leaving money on the table that they're not going to turn away that work, right? And so they're going to be in this cycle, and you have to think about it. If one of your customers has you painting, another of your customers has you doing epoxy, another of your customers has you doing trim, they're most likely going to refer you out for that business. So it's way harder to streamline and really get focused on that one business if you're always taking those other jobs. And so the first decision to decide where you're going to go involves taking the time to break this down. Now, you can get more granular. You can absolutely 100% add in some of the other costs like your marketing. You can add another cost like your fixed overhead. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But just this right here, if you're just accounting for the major things with your cost of goods sold, which is primarily going to be your labor and your materials, will give you a ton of clarity on where you should be spending your time and where you should focus your energy. So I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions, as always, you can send a message to support@cabinetstartup.com and we will get back to you. If you found this helpful, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.